Welcome to Sureway English live lectures. Today's topic is Describe Image from the PTE Speaking section. In this video you will find detailed explanations of each and every step, proven methods that are known to work, and you will get some very solid practice. So make sure that you watch this video till the very end. And if you have not already done so, don't forget to create your free account on surewayenglish.com and sign up for the free PTE course and many other resources. Let's go to question number 1. Alright, so you had 25 seconds to first look at the image, prepare your response, and then you were given 40 seconds to speak your response into the microphone. If you still need a bit more time, you can pause the video and do that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and have a look at the answers. So here's a sample response for you.
The pie chart shows the top exports from India in the years 2013 through 2014. The exports were measured in US dollars. The first thing that is clear from the chart is that petro products accounted for the biggest share of the exports at 20%. The next highest contributor to Indian exports was gems and jewelry at 13%. The agriculture sector, which exports things like rice, made up 10% of the total exports. Fabric and textiles and transport parts each provided 7%, while machine and pharma provided 5% each. Metal products and electronics made 3%, and plastics were at 2% of the exports. All remaining exports provided the remaining 25%.
Alright, so the very first thing that comes to your mind when you look at this image is that it's a pie chart. Okay, and then you look at the title. So the title says India's top exports, and in brackets in US dollars in the year 2013-2014. So that will make your overview sentence, the first sentence, that the pie chart shows the top exports from India in the year 2013-2014. Now, in the earlier questions, we discussed that we have to look for the points which are the highest and which are the lowest, because those will form the significant parts of our response. Now in this case, the highest share is for petro products and for others. In fact, the others has the highest share, that is 25%. But this is something important to remember. You'll never begin by talking about others. So others means the leftover over options, they always come in the end, right? So the first you have to talk about the individual parts which have the highest share. So from that perspective, the first point that you should mention is that the petro products, they have the highest share at 20%. Okay, because in others a number of different exports together make 25%, but petro products in itself make 20%. So that's why we first talk about the petro products, and that's what it says, that the first thing that is clear from the chart is that petro products accounted for biggest share of the exports at 20%. And the next highest is gems and jewelry at 13%, and agricultural sector, which includes things such as rice exports, made up 10%. The next one is fabric and textiles at 7%, machinery and pharma, they both are at 5%, Electronics, metal products, and plastics, they are at around 2% and 3%. And then in the end, we'll say that all remaining exports provide the remaining 25% of India's total exports in the year 2014-2015. Sorry, 2013-2014. Now, it's important to keep an eye on the timer. So, you have to be very careful that you only have, say, 40 seconds to give your response. So, if you feel like that you're spending too much time on one single point and that you'll miss another more important point, then you can skip that. So, for example, instead of saying plastics 2%, electronics 3%, metal products 3%, machinery, pharma 5%, you can club them together. And even if you miss one of them, the smaller ones, it wouldn't make that much difference compared to if you miss something major such as agriculture or petro products. So please keep that in mind and you'll do fine. Alright, if you need now you can pause the video or go back and try it again. Otherwise, let's go ahead and look at the question number 2 now. Just a minute before we go on to the next slide. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Do it now, it takes only a second and you will never miss a lecture. And please also remember to like the video and leave a comment. We love hearing from you. Alright, so that was 40 seconds for the response. Now let's go ahead and see one of the sample responses. Here you are.
The picture shows a major city that seems to be densely populated. There are several tall skyscrapers in the background, while there are a number of smaller buildings in the front. It seems the smaller buildings were built much earlier than the ones in the background. They all look like some kind of office buildings. This is probably the central business district of the city. But if you look further behind the buildings, you will see a tall white mountain that seems to have had snow recently.
Alright, so as soon as you look at this picture, you can tell that it's a picture of a major city. Right? It's got tall buildings in the background, it's got some smaller buildings in the foreground, and then further at a distance, behind the tall buildings, you can also see a white mountain. Right? So possibly it's got some snow recently. So those are the key elements, different points that you have to pick from this picture. And then you can add some of your own material as well. You can say some information based upon your own judgment. For example, you can say that it looks like it's the major CBD, it's the central business district of the city, and all these tall buildings, they possibly are office buildings, right? And then you can also draw another comparison that the buildings in the front, the smaller ones, they possibly look like, they are older buildings, and the ones behind, they look much more modern, they look, you know, much newer. So that's the kind of uh, information that you need to put in your response. So first the overview sentence that the picture shows a major city that seems to be densely populated. Then there are several tall buildings or skyscrapers. So in the sample response, there is the word skyscrapers. So instead of saying buildings again and again, you can use a variety of words. So the more variety of language that you demonstrate, the better your score would be. And then you can tell that they all look like office buildings, and this probably is the central business district of the city. And then again, the last element, that if you look further behind the buildings, you'll notice a tall white mountain that seems to have had some snow recently. Okay, so that was question number 2. Let's go ahead and have a look at question number 3 now. Alright, so that's 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the sample response. Here you are.
The table shows the rankings of the top 10 most densely populated countries and regions in the world. It is important to note the list considers only regions with population more than 1 million. At the top of the chart is Singapore with a density of 7,605 persons per square kilometer. Next is Bahrain with almost 1/5 of the density of Singapore at 1,646. Bangladesh has the third highest density at 1,101. Taiwan, Mauritius, South Korea, Lebanon, Rwanda, and India follow next with densities between 645 and 391. It is interesting to note the wide variation in population and land areas between the countries. India has 3,287,240 kilometers squared compared to only 710 of Singapore.
Alright, so the first thing that you should notice when you look at this image is that it's a table. And the title of the table says 10 most densely populated countries slash regions with population above 1 million. So it means it's a table, it's a ranking of 10 most densely populated countries or regions, and that's what the table shows. So it shows the population, it shows the area, and then it shows the density, which is population per kilometer square. Now, as I've said that in any of these comparison charts, graphs, or tables, you have to notice the points that are the highest, that are lowest, and then when there are a lot of these points, for example, there are a number of countries in this table, and if you try to mention a separate sentence for each of these, then you'll just run out of 40 seconds, you'll run out of time. So you have to try to club the points which are similar. So for example, in this question, Lebanon, Netherlands, Rwanda, they all are around 400, so you can club them together. Or even Taiwan, starting from Taiwan to India, you can say that they range from 645 to 391, as they have done in this question. But the first important thing, you have to start with the most densely populated country, that is Singapore, That's what's mentioned. The next is Bahrain. You have to draw a comparison between them. So instead of saying that Bahrain is 1646 and Singapore is 7605, you can just say that Bahrain is almost one-fifth of the density of Singapore at 1646 compared to Singapore's 7605. Uh, now, they've also mentioned the population and area, right? But you can't mention all of these points. So that's why in the sample response they say that it's interesting to note the wide variation in population and land areas between the countries. And then just to show this variation, they say that India has almost 3.2 million kilometers square compared to 710 kilometers square of Singapore. All right. So follow the same structure. Begin with an overview, then then speak about the highest or the lowest. Compare some of those points. Group together the points which are similar, and then try to draw a conclusion. Okay. So that was your response for question number 3. Before we go on to the next slide, remember you can get the best PTE prep, mock tests, skill builders, super methods, tips, tricks, templates, a huge question bank, and guidance from expert teachers on surewayenglish.com. Don't forget to create your free account and sign up for the free course on surewayenglish.com. Alright, so that's 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the sample response. Here we are.
The graph shows how many years it has taken to double the population of a region, possibly the Earth, from 1700 to 2000 and onwards. In 1715, the population was at 0.75 billion, and it had taken 544 years to double it from 0.375 billion. In 1881, population stood at 1.5 billion, doubling from 0.75 billion in only 166 years, which is almost one-third of the earlier time period. In 1960, the population reached 3 billion, taking only 79 years to double, and in 1999 reached 6 billion, taking only 39 years to double. The population will again double in future around 2025, but the rate will be lesser than before.
Okay, so what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you look at this image? That it's a graph, and the title of the graph is the years to double population. It doesn't say population of what, but since it's in several billions, then you can probably guess, you can say that it's the population of the Earth. So on one side, on the vertical axis, it says years to double, and on the horizontal it says ending year, that in which year the population doubled. So that's what it's showing. And right from the beginning, the graphs steadily decreasing till 2000, and then in red it shows that there'll be a slight increase. So that means the years to double population has steadily decreased from 1700s, and essentially that's what's said in sample response. So the first overview sentence, that the graph shows how many years it has taken to double the population of a region, possibly the Earth, from 1700 to 2000 and onwards. and then says that in 1715 the population was 0.75 billion and had doubled in 544 years. Now, an important thing to notice is that the sample response, it has picked some of the points and has left some of the other points, because it's not possible to cover each of those. So not possible to say 1715, then talk about 1804, then 1881, so on, because you only got 40 seconds. So that's why when it comes to from 1715, it goes directly to 1881, and then instead of uh, you know explicitly talking about 1804, while talking about 1881, it says that it took almost one third of the earlier time period, or could have also been half, or half of the earlier time period. So that's how uh, you'll manage to fit in all the relevant information in the given time frame. Now, since there's a part of the graph which is in red, so that means there's significant information, because it shows a variation that after falling, the rate will decrease, and it will take a larger number of years to double compared to um, what it has been in the past. So that was the last point, that the population will again double in future around 2025, but the rate will be lesser than before. Okay. Now, if you are left with some time in the end, you can say that so that means in the future some major event might happen, which would impact the rate of population growth. So that would be considered as a conclusion or as an inference, something that you have drawn from your own side. So try to do that if you can, because that helps you show your variety, your confidence, and your control over the language, and all of those things add to the score that you will get. Okay? So the last question of this practice set, question number 5. Let's do it. All right, so that's 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and look at the sample response. Here we are.
The bar graphs compare the cash from operations that Samsung and Apple had in calendar years 2008 to 2012. In the first 3 years, Samsung's cash from operations was significantly higher than Apple's. In 2008, Samsung had 15,364 million compared to Apple's 10,747 million. 2011 was the first year when Samsung fell behind Apple, registering a fall in its cash from operations. In that year, Apple had almost 100% growth, reaching $45,310 million. The trend continued in 2012, with Apple at $56,728 million and Samsung at $43,666.
All right, so the first thing that should come to your mind when you look at this image is that these are bar graphs, and there are two bars, so they're comparing two things. And the blue is for Samsung, and the other color, that's for Apple. And the title of the graph also, the title of the image also says that it's Samsung versus Apple, comparing what? Comparing cash for operations in a calendar year. And then on the horizontal axis, they have years 2008 to 12, and on the vertical axis, they have US million dollars, right? Uh, So that's the comparison there. They've also said that, for the comparison, they have taken $1 equal to 1,151. But since the comparison is entirely in million dollars, you don't really need to mention this point. Now, when you look at these graphs, the first thing that you will notice is that for first 3 years, Samsung is on top, and then Apple is on top. And from in 2011, Apple has had a huge growth. So those are the key points that you have to capture. So in your introduction, you'll say the bar graphs compare the cash from operations that Samsung and Apple had in calendar years 2008 to 2012. Then you can say in the first 3 years, Samsung's cash was much higher, uh, from 15,364 million dollars, compared to Apple's 10,747 in 2008. Now you can't really mention all the points, so you can say that this kept the trend continued till 2010, and 2011 was the year when Samsung's growth fell down and it registered a decrease from 27,401 to 26,356, and that was also the year when Apple took it over, right? And that trend also continued in 2012. So that's what you have to say, and that's what was there in the response. Another good thing to notice in the response was the use of words like, in that year, Apple had almost 100% growth, reaching $45,310 million. You could also have said that in 2011, Apple's cash from operations doubled to 45,310. So always use these words which show a comparison, which demonstrate what the trend is. So don't just speak of the numbers, rather say it doubled, it increased, it decreased, it became twice, there was 100% growth, there was a huge jump. So try to use that kind of language shows which shows that you know how to use the different elements of English language in different situations. Okay. Again, what I've been saying before, try to demonstrate your variety. So that's what has to come across in our responses if you want to get a better score in the exam. So with that, we come to the end of this lecture. Don't forget to sign up for a free course on surveyenglish.com. All the best.